All right, all right. Hello, hello, hello. How's everybody doing? We doing good? How's everybody doing? All right. Let's get this stream started. Let's get this stream started. Let's go. All right. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but the stream did start on time. I just want to add that. Just want to clarify that. Um 1 second. What the hell? All right, all right, all right, all right. Yeah, the channel makes me do a bunch of steps anytime I want to do anything now at this point. Like, even just open up the stream settings. Just for security. 15 late, not 15 late points. That's not, no, come on, come on. The hacker would be on time. I have no response to that. Oh, L mic. Oh, is the mic bad? Hold on. The fuck? Hello, hello, hello? Hello? Okay, let me fix this. I can fix this. I can fix this for you all. Don't know why the mic... Man. Hold on. Hold on, hold on, hold on. Hold on 1 second. We'll get this audio quality really good. Really good, like usual. Okay. And there we go. There we go. We should be good now. Should be good now. Hope everyone's doing well. Yeah, should be good now. Diptio, thanks to 2. You gonna be late for the Blackbeard Fruit Theory video, huh? No, that will come out. It should come out this Tuesday. It should come out this Tuesday. It should come out this Tuesday. We've already got the thumbnail in the process of being made, so yeah, I think it's an interesting one. This is a theory I've been saving for a little bit. Let's get stream likes up to 50 real quick. Magnus, thanks for the 5. Since you've already done a video about why Sanji's a conqueror, when he gets it, you should do one on why he and Zoro will surpass Kaido. I don't think that's needed, though. That's the thing. I don't think that's needed, because it's just like, look at 80-year-old Gaban and Rayleigh, you know? I'm not saying 80-year-old Gaban and Rayleigh beat Kaido. I'm not saying that. But I'm just like, at bare minimum, you would agree that now with the things that... I think most people would agree that now with the things that we've seen from 80-year-old Gaban, right? Most people would probably agree that at the very least, prime Rayleigh, prime Gaban against Kaido and Big Mom, it's like, you know, even if you still think Kaido, Big Mom are stronger than them, you would agree that it's a toss-up. You know, you would agree that it's a discussion, that there's a... You would have to actually make an argument. You know, you can't just be, oh, Kaido, well, he's Rumor Man, therefore, and he beat... he also... I almost want to give Kaido, I'm like, he beat 5 rookies, but then I have to think about it like, no, he didn't even beat 5 rookies. He, with Big Mom, he with another Yonko, actually couldn't beat 5 rookies. So there's not even that. So, I don't know. But the bottom line is basically like, I think we're at a point where prime Rayleigh, prime Gaban, there's some level of argument. You would have to actually argue why Kaido and Big Mom should be above them, right? It's, there's a debate to be had there, right? And Zoro and Sanji, end of story, are obviously going to be stronger than prime Rayleigh, prime Gaban. I mean, looking at Luffy's going to be way stronger than Roger at the end of the story. So Zoro and Sanji are going to definitely lap Rayleigh and Gaban, right? So it's not really much to discuss, you know? All I'll say is that factually, right? This is obviously Kaido is stronger than Zoro, no question at the moment. But just factually, Zoro did get already got the better of Kaido in every one of their one-on-one interactions on the rooftop, right? Not saying Kaido doesn't beat Zoro on the rooftop, right? But I'm just pointing out already, like, fucking, you know, I don't even know what you call it. Extremely undeveloped Zoro was doing fine against Kaido. There was not a single moment on the rooftop where he wasn't fine against Kaido, you know? So Zoro hundreds of chapters later, 10 power-ups later, there's not even a discussion, you know? And then Sanji, the same logic sort of follows. Yeah, mid-gen stocks are up. I think at the end of the day, it's going to be something like mid-gen is stronger than old-gen, and then the young-gen is the strongest, right? Blackbeard is a tricky one to place because he's, age-wise, he's part of the mid-generation, but in terms of growth, like when he kind of cut his teeth, he's part of the new generation. I don't know. And then Loki, how do you put Loki? It feels like Oda's trying to portray Loki as part of the young generation, right? A Luffy contemporary, but in actuality, he was a fucking Cold Roger contemporary. So I think the generations get a little bit muddy. After we kind of just know what the old generation is at the end of the day. We know what the old generation is. Keith X Edge, thanks for being a Yonko to your member for 23 months. Kaido's a tank, but Kaido has no confirmed genuine wins. Really impacts his status. I mean, he just has terrible showings. Genuinely terrible showings against every strong character. Not like terrible showings like, oh, he loses a lot, but he just, you look at his track record versus every strong character, it's not good, you know? It's just never been good. He doesn't have any sort of strong feat. His only feats are against weak characters, and that doesn't really mean much, at least to me, in the grand scheme of things. That's it, you know? I don't know. Some people might wait. I mean, and to me, even in terms of beating up on weak characters, fucking Shanks did it better, you know? Like, one hit, Kid Killer done. Nothing else to really talk about here, right? It's just, like, okay. I also get annoyed with Kaido when people try to gas up how strong Kaido is, at least online, they'll post clips of Kaido from the anime looking really cool and scary. You know, there's some really cool clips of Kaido from the Wano anime, and it's like, this is the anime. This is, of course they're gonna gas shit up. I mean, compare what, like, look at Loki's initial strike that he did in Elbaf, right? The hammer swing that he did. In the manga, it was cool, right? It was cool. It was like a really big, large-scale attack, but the anime made it basically seem like a single swing from Loki's hammer is like an island-scale hockey feat or something like that. The anime does that, you know? The anime made fucking Kobe's punches look like the best, like the strongest in the world or whatever, you know? It made Kobe's punches look like it's on par with Kaido. It's kind of, you know, that's what annoys me. It's like, oh, people have forgotten how badass Kaido is, and then they play some random clip of him, like, looking scary in the anime, and it's like, this isn't a real thing. This is not, how does this scale Kaido above anybody? This is just the anime making him look cool. Deptio, thanks for 2. What if Loki plus Ragnar both awaken their fruits? Is this a prediction? Okay, so here, hold on. We're going to test something. So this prediction stream, we're going to be testing out Lore Square, actually, for the predictions. We're going to try that. So I don't have this dialed in 100%, but I think that basically, hold on. Let me do this. And Loki plus Ragnar both awakening their fruits. That is a really cool idea. I wonder if Ragnar's already awakened. He doesn't have that stuff around him. But that would be really cool. No, bro. Kaido had to run a gauntlet. Insert picture of Shinobu. Yeah, it's just like, if we're talking about the world's strongest, if we're talking about the strongest characters, right? It doesn't even make sense to include the Scabbards. It literally doesn't even make sense to include them, period. They're just, including the Scabbards almost hurts the argument. That's like including, like, by the standards of arguing for being one of the strongest characters in One Piece, right? This would be like arguing that Luffy had to fight gifters on the way up to the rooftop, right? In terms of equivalent level of difficulty. You know what I mean? Anyway. Oh, you meant for Final War stuff? Okay, it isn't. Okay. Yeah, I think for this, I want to test out Lore Square. So, hold on. Audio's going to disappear for 1 second. Nobody freak out. It's all going to be okay. All right? No one freak out. Audio's going to go away for 1 second, and then it will be back. There we go. All right, now audio's back. So I kind of want to test this, which is we've already got a lot of people submitting chapter predictions here. What we're gonna do is I want to test this, which is, so as you know, with every chapter that comes out, at least that we had predictions for in the previous week, we pick who the winners are from from the whimsical board that I make. I want to try doing that this year through through the chapter prediction thing, or sorry, this week through the chapter prediction thing that we've got in Lore Square. So I won't be typing these out. You guys can submit your predictions. I'll hit refresh and everything like that. I'll do some voting myself to what I think is likely. But yeah, it's predictions for chapter 1192. Here, let me drop the link for y'all. And then we can use stream to kind of just chat about various predictions and possibilities. I'm calm. I'm different from y'all. And in terms of overlap, so if some people submit the same prediction as other people, when it comes to choosing the chapter prediction winner, I'm just going to go with whoever's predictions came first. So if you have a remarkably similar prediction to somebody else, if theirs came first, I'm going to go with that person's. So yeah, check it out. Now, if I'm looking at these, right, so far, so try not to do predictions that people have already done. Luffy starts to fade out of Gear 5, allowing his injuries to truly take effect. Okay, so we can kind of vote. This will be fun. All right. Okay, so I think let's do this. Let's do this. In this stream, you guys can go in and vote for which predictions you think are the best, right? So then by the end of stream, we can see Luffy starts to fade out of Gear 5, allowing his injuries to truly take effect. Okay, I like this one. I'm gonna hit yes. Will Luffy start to fade out of Gear 5? I mean, Luffy always starts to fade out of Gear 5. Luffy will die in Elbaf. I'm gonna say no. I'd say yes, but this is a very easy prediction. So when it comes to choosing a prediction winner, I'm not gonna give it to easy predictions. Chapter ends with Loki going in his hybrid form. That would be sick. I don't think the raid's gonna fail right away. Chapter ends with Loki going in his hybrid form. My heart wants to say yes. Loki going in his hybrid form. Hey! Hey, that's my whistle! My fiance's dad, for fun, bought me like a train whistle that I can blow. It's remarkably authentic, but I think she's using that right now, which she's not allowed to do. Chapter ends with Loki going in his hybrid form. Shit. Does chapter end with Loki going? You all can vote yourselves. Oh, this is actually... Okay, you know what? I'm just going to say... Because all of these can't be correct, right? Okay, I'm going to say no. I like this. Obviously, all of these can't happen in the same chapter. You know what? I'll say no. I don't know. Yeah. This I want to happen. I just don't know if it's... A lot of these are very reasonable predictions. It's just like all of these things that I voted yes on are things that will happen at some point. It's just like, will they happen this next chapter or not? That's the tricky thing. I hope your in-laws give you a Wii as your wedding gift. Even more out of date. Let's get the stream likes up to 50 real quick. Otherworlds JT, thanks for the 10. Blackbeard goes to Wano, steals Pluton plus Shinobu. Emu is defeated. Gorosei loses power from Covenant and dies. Oh shit, Blackbeard has Celestial Dragon turn into Saturn, forces Shinobu, or using someone of the Devil Fruit to age up the Seraphim. I could definitely see Blackbeard stealing the Seraphim and then forcing Shinobu to age up the Seraphim. I could definitely imagine that, because there is a route there, and I do think that those things basically connect. I always believe that Blackbeard will steal the Seraphim, Shinobu's the key to it. I already think Blackbeard will go to Wano. I think a lot of that connects. So yeah, great points, Otherworlds JT. The tricky thing is I always thought it would be like the sequence of events would be a bit more, how do I say, like Blackbeard going to Wano, because I feel like steering the Seraphim might be like a final final play for Blackbeard. I figured that he would get Pluton first, so the only way he'd be able to age up the Seraphim fast via Shinobu would be if he also captures Shinobu somehow. Unless Oda is able to make the order kind of make sense that Blackbeard somehow captures the Seraphim, gets away with the Seraphim, so the world government can't catch him and stop him, right? Blackbeard then goes to Wano, gets Pluton, and has Shinobu age up the Seraphim, all before the world government can stop him. That's a lot of tasks. But I could see it. Mihawk the Goat, thanks for the 2. Will Zoro and Sanji surpass Green Bull and Fujitora post Elbaf? I'm going to refresh this to see if we've got some new predictions. Yeah, I think that they will be I would favor them, at least versus Green Bull. I would favor Zoro and Sanji against them post... Okay, let me put it this way. The way I view it... streaming, babe. Hold on. Maybe I can step out for 1 second. 1 second. I'll be right back. I was handed this whistle. Watch how realistic it is, okay? Pretty cool, right? It sounds like a real train, right? She saw in chat that people were asking for the whistle. Anyway, yeah, if Green Bull is still stronger than Zoro after Elbaf, that's bullshit. I just don't see a route to Zoro becoming the world's strongest swordsman if he's not at least above Green Bull, you know? Yeah, my basic view is that Zoro and Sanji, by the end of Elbaf, need to be stronger than 80-year-old Gaban. That is a very reasonable bar, okay? I think that should put them above... The way I view it right now, I feel like Gaban and Old Rayleigh, I view them as basically roughly Admiral level. Like, roughly. Like, I don't think they would have the stamina to just straight up fight Kaido or Big Mom for an extended period of time, you know? And even, you know, against Kizaru, the way I remember it is basically, because people's biases change how they view fights a lot in retrospect. So when Rayleigh and Kizaru first fought, the consensus was basically that they're, like, neck and neck. And that Rayleigh seems to imply that because he's old, he will eventually get tired. But at the time, it was interpreted that this is a stalemate that Kizaru would likely eventually win due to Rayleigh's age. Okay? That's what it was viewed like. As time progressed, over the years, the revisionist history on that fight has essentially been that Kizaru was holding back, wasn't trying against Rayleigh, yada yada. All headcanon, by the way, right? This isn't like Egghead where Kizaru was like morally conflicted or something like that, right? This was literally just like, I've been sent by the Celestial Dragons to fucking capture Straw Hat Luffy and probably to fucking bring you in as well, really, right? So this is pure headcanon. But it's literally just like, it's literally just like people were like, Kizaru could have just low-diffed Rayleigh or something, but chose not to. Why? No logic to it, right? But, so over the years, it kind of got pushed that Rayleigh is like, you know, old Rayleigh is probably like first mate level or something like that. Kizaru is an admiral, yada yada. No evidence really suggested this, right? But that's just what people kind of ran with, and sometimes just narratives build, okay? Now, in light of two things, which is, you know, we got to see Rayleigh still flexing on Blackbeard. I'm not saying Rayleigh, like, even Rayleigh doesn't think he could beat Blackbeard now, but Rayleigh did flex on Blackbeard. Rayleigh is still viewed as a very I don't think Blackbeard would walk away if just a first mate level character showed up, right? And then Gaban, this last couple chapters, really showing out against Emu. To me, I'm like, yeah, these characters at this age, they probably are still Admiral level, right? Yeah, Rayleigh was probably eventually going to lose to Kizaru. Rayleigh implies as much himself, but it was very much a stalemate at the time that it was happening, right? Rayleigh can basically go toe-to-toe with Kizaru for some period of time. He's not, until he presumably just gets tired, right? So Rayleigh's not a whole tier below Kizaru, because, you know, I don't think Kizaru's the weakest Admiral even. I think Green Bull's the weakest Admiral, right? So, yeah, you know, if we look at characters that we look at as the weaker end of Admiral tier, like a Green Bull, like a Saturn or whatever, yeah, I think old Rayleigh, old Gaban would take them. Just because Rayleigh probably would eventually lose to Kizaru doesn't mean that Rayleigh's not also Admiral tier. He's not a full tier below Kizaru. I don't view that anymore. Same with Gaban. I view them as, like, comfortably Admiral tier. The only reason not Yonko tier is because they're just fucking old. So I don't think that they can do what they do for a long period of time, you know? So that's how I'm kind of viewing them at the moment, okay? Zoro and Sanji should be better than old Rayleigh and old Gaban by the end of this arc, okay? So Zoro and Sanji should be comfortably Admiral tier by the end of this arc, right? That's my view on things. If they're not comfortably Admiral tier by the end of this arc, then Luffy might as well just fucking find some new wings, because the ones he's got are fucking bums, okay? Like, the war is one arc away, one big storyline away, and we've got to fucking defeat everybody. The fucking Gorosei, the world government, Blackbeard, whatever Blackbeard turns into. We got to surpass the Roger Pirates and the fucking Dawn Pirates. And he's walking around with dudes who are struggling against fucking Sommers and killing them at the moment, right? So Zoro and Sanji, big upgrades needed by the end of the arc. Yeah. Let's get Streamlights up to 50 real quick. Tom, thanks to the 2. Did you see Oda confirmed more than 4 years left? Did I see Oda confirm more than 4 years left? I did see something about that. To me, it's just like, I've just generally stopped even considering what Oda's claims are about timeline. So, because I've generally stopped considering Oda's claims about timeline, I'm just like, you know, how do I say this? Because I've generally stopped considering Oda's claims about timeline, I just don't take, even if Oda, whatever Oda said, I wouldn't give it any sort of thought. Unless Oda said something really long. Like, if Oda came out and said, oh, One Piece ends in 2 years, I'd be like, well, that's just not going to happen, so this is just Oda bullshitting, right? So, don't care. 4 years actually kind of tracks, because I think that it'll end... I've said this on record a few times now, maybe on streams, maybe it was on Patreon, I don't know. I think One Piece ends at chapter 1356. I think everything kind of fits with that. It fits with expectations of how long Elbaf will still be and how long the war arc will still be. I think it either ends at that, or it might have to go to 1400. So something in that range, right? Oda releases between 30 to 40 chapters a year, closer to 30 at this point. 4 years, 120 chapters. That's, at least that much longer, right? At least that much longer. So maybe 4 to 5 years left. It tracks with what Oda's saying. If Oda had said something like, it's going to be 10 more years, then that would get my attention, because that's like, oh, whoa. That actually means that there's way more to the story to go than we expected. 4 years, it's kind of like, yeah, that just confirms what we already thought. And it also kind of confirms that Oda was lying when he said the 5-year thing, you know? Tiptia, thanks for the 2. Zoroskar and Kaido made people downplay Oda in BTW. Oh, I actually don't remember that as much. I just remember people downplaying Zoro. I think Odin's just kind of hard to... I don't know. Tom says, you keep saying you have a Logia Awakening video plan that you can't talk about on stream, but it never came out. Oh, yeah, you're right. You know what? Let me make a little note to myself, too. Hold on, I'm going to stop screen share for 1 second. Hold on. Yeah. Loki Awakening video I do have to do. It's a lot of these videos are kind of like, oh, wait until the time is right. You know what I mean? Like, you want to drop a theory when it lines up with certain modern like current events or something, but other times it's like, okay, I'm being too withholding, might as well just drop a cool theory because it's a cool theory. All right, Chopper does not wait, am I screen sharing? Chopper does not understand Biblo's ancient animal language. I'm going to say no, because I think that the setup was there for Chopper to understand. Luffy goes into hybrid form instead. I feel like he's been in hybrid form or something. I don't know. It's hard to say. That would be really cool if it's revealed that Luffy hasn't been in hybrid form, if he hasn't been in true Nika form or something like that. That would be really interesting. That would be a really cool revelation. Either way, if it's revealed that Luffy... Like, these are cool predictions. I don't think that they're likely. How do I see the votes? I want to sort it by new. Okay, so we got some new predictions here. New predictions here, and then most votes is like... This isn't the same thing. Most active, most votes. I don't think it's properly sorting by most votes at the moment. I'm not sure. Because if it was, then these should be higher, right? Okay, let me click on something for an example. No comments. Maybe the most votes thing, that's something that has to be done on the back end. This chapter will have minimal emu... Okay, so I'm going to sort by new. This chapter will have minimal emu fight content. Oh, that's very possible. That's very, very possible. It's just like... What does minimal mean? What does minimal mean? Because I feel like we might have a couple pages and then cut away to the Zoro Sanji fights. Because the Zoro Sanji fights have to conclude before the emu fights conclude, right? Regardless of whether or not you think that Zoro and Sanji are going to come back to help against Emu, which I definitely think that they will, you know? I don't think this arc ends with Zoro and Sanji not getting at least the level of shine that old Gaban did. That'd be insane. So, even if you don't think that Zoro and Sanji are going to come help against Emu, just the natural way One Piece arcs go, Luffy's fight can't end until Zoro and Sanji's fights end, you know? This chapter will have minimal fight content. I'm going to say no, because it depends on what you mean by minimal. If it's at least a couple pages of like if it's at least a few pages of showing the Emu fight, then I would count it as more than minimal, you know? So I'm going to say no. Oh, this is a good guess, but I don't know if it's going to happen. So, oh, no, you know what? We might, because he might think of Joy Boy and Nika working together. So I'm going to go ahead with that. Usopp sees Emu's attack and heads towards the scene to do something. Luffy heading over to do something would be cool. Luffy heading over to do something, or Usopp heading over to do something would be cool. So I'm going to vote yes, even if I don't necessarily think it's going to happen. I think it's just cool. Tom says, Emu greater than Loki. Oh, wait, whoa, what's this? Eastside Sensei sent MVP for 250 jewels. All right. Don't know what that means, but that's cool. Yeah, if it's just one panel, we won't count it. Yeah, Tom says, Emu greater than Loki, greater than Dragon, greater than Garland, greater than Mihawk, greater than Shanks, greater than Shamrock, greater than Luffy, Kurt. This was off the top of my head. I also didn't bother with greater than or equal to. For me, Luffy's just the hardest to rank overall, because I can only really rank We're Gear 5 Luffy. Because the stamina thing, him just not being able to fight for that long. I mean, maybe this is kind of proving that wrong, because he's still going, despite taking so much damage. But, yeah, I think Luffy's just really hard to rate. That's my theory more. It's the POV prediction. I mean, I said yes. I think it sounds good. Because it would cause Emu probably to remember what Nika and Nidhogg have done in the past. Luffy's just a clown, not gonna lie. I mean, his abilities kind of reflect that. Um, this is a random thought, because now I'm thinking, okay, so first of all, here's what I believe, which is, I am more convinced that the film, BAAD, is either Boy and a Devil or Battle Against a Devil, and either way, it's about the finale of Elbaf. I think either way, it's about that. It's possible if a Joy Boy flashback begins that it would cover that, but at the same time, I think it's more likely that it just covers the battle against Emu here in Elbaf. The reason being, I feel like the Void Century flashback, the Joy Boy flashback, cannot happen till pretty deep into the series. It cannot happen. That's my thought. It cannot happen until pretty deep into the series because, if you think about it, right? One, we're likely to only get that flashback once Robin reads the true history, right? So we have to actually get to Laughdale. We have to see what Roger saw. That's a lot of steps, you know? They don't even have the fourth poneglyph yet. We're not even out of Elbaf yet. When they get to Laughdale, is it going to be like immediately getting to read the true history? I don't know if it's even going to be like immediately reading the true history because, again, in most One Piece arcs, right? The flashback that gives you a lot of history and context, it's not at the beginning of the storyline. It would actually be generally as certain things progress, and then Oda finds like a nice meaty part in the middle or middle end, like, you know, usually past the halfway point to give us the flashback. And then generally post flashback is when the final battle of the arc happens, you know? You can kind of think through, you know, just generally most major One Piece arcs. So, yeah, I think it's unlikely, if Boy and a Devil is meant to be a big Joy Boy flashback, I just think it's unlikely that we get to that in time in the anime by 2029. I think it's much more likely that Boy and a Devil or Battle Against a Devil covers the finale of Elbaf, because that's generally what lends itself to movies, right? Really big, action-packed battle stuff, right? Like, look at Demon Slayer's Infinity Castle, etc., you know? The only other option would be if there's a really short arc that Oda's got planned immediately after Elbaf, but I cannot imagine what a really short arc would be right after Elbaf that would make sense to cover a movie. I don't know. It happens before Luffy fights the main bad guy, bro. Think Dressrosa. Dressrosa is a poor example because Dressrosa has 4 major flashbacks. It has a Senor Pink flashback, but that's more of a personal thing. But it has 4 major flashbacks that go through the course of the arc. And yeah, the first one is actually, I want to say the first one is like, I think we get Rebecca's flashback first, then Riku's, then Kiros. And I think all of those happen in the first half of Dressrosa. I think, I feel like Rebecca's is like 20 chapters in, then another 30 chapters in, then another like around 40, 740. Something like that. Oda paces those flashbacks out kind of pretty rapid fire, but spread out over the course of the first act of Dressrosa. And then in the second half, it's the Law flashback, you know? So there's not a hard and fast rule, you know? Like, a lot of times it's right before Oda has Luffy defeat the main bad guy, you know? Like, Skypiea, Arlong Park, stuff like that. Other times it's a bit earlier, right? So, for example, Alabasta. Alabasta, the flashback happens around, I want to say, the halfway point or something, before they even get to Rain Base, you know? Yeah, it does vary to some degree, but it's generally not right at the beginning, you know? And if it is a Void Century flashback, it would have to happen right after Elbaf. And they're not getting to Laughdale right after Elbaf. It's probably the next step for them, but again, fucking Road Poneglyph, right? Like, get there and, you know, Final War, Laughdale arc begins or whatever, however that works out. And so immediately afterwards, we're getting the whole Void Century thing? I don't know about that. Don't forget about Law. Law made up his backstory. Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. Like the 4 flashbacks of Dressrosa that I'm referencing, 3 come in the first half, and then 4th, which is Law, is right before Luffy defeats the bad guy. Yes, but I'm saying Dressrosa is a poor example just because you could argue that, like, what is the main flashback of the arc? You could view it as Law's flashback, or you could view it as the Riku family flashback, which is essentially 3 POV flashbacks strung together, you know? Again, I'll always say that Dressrosa, in my opinion, was an arc that was trying to do too much. I personally think One Piece storylines function better, in my opinion, when they're centered around one sort of core emotional conflict. But Dressrosa, the point of the storyline was kind of that, well, Doflamingo's this, you know, this naughty kid who's got his hand in a bunch of different cookie jars, right? And so he's fucked over the Tontadas over here, the Riku family over here, Trafalgar Law over here, and Corazon and everything, and then even his own subordinates like Bellamy and stuff. So it was more so stringing together. Like, that was kind of Luffy's final speech to Doflamingo before he goes Gear 4th. He's like, you've hurt these people and these people and these people. Like, you're just behind all of these things, so I'm going to kick your ass. I generally find there to be more emotional punch for me, when it's more concentrated, when it's kind of like, okay, we get to Arlong Park. What is the backstory? This is from Nami's point of view. The tragedy that she and Nojiko and Jen, like the villagers, all experience, and that is the wrong that is being righted. You know, if Arlong Park was more like, okay, we've got that thing, but then also we're going to learn about some other stuff that Arlong did on some other island, and then some other stuff that Arlong did, like, I don't know, at a different point in time, right? And like, kind of stringing all those together, it kind of muddies the emotional focus, in my opinion. But I might be wrong. I know a lot of people love Dressrosa, but that was my feeling. Anyway, focusing up. Yeah, I just think it's unlikely that it can be a Joy Boy flashback, you know? Can we please do a tier list of all theories you've had, even ones that weren't true, such as Lodestar being Nami's arc? If you make that tier list, I can't promise that we do it. But if you choose to one day make that tier list, I will strongly consider doing that for a thing. Oh, speaking of which, so one more thing that I want to explain to you guys. So right now on Lore Square, we've obviously got predictions and everything like that, but a lot of people have been putting in their theories, and this is fun because this is something that I've wanted to do for some time that we're going to be able to do for Monday stream. So this Monday stream, what is happening is, I think right now there are yeah, this is the perfect amount of time, this is the perfect window where I can do this. This is going to be harder to do as we get more theories on the site. But I want to do a little competition, and I see people are already doing voting and stuff like that for these theories. So I want to do a little competition on Monday where you can go over the course of from today through Monday, over the course of the weekend, go in, put in your best theory or whatever, and we're going to do a competition on Monday where we're going to go through and read all of the theories that we've got here. And I'll pick my favorite, and you all, through your voting, because you can upvote, downvote, etc., can vote for the best one. And we'll probably have a little cash prize and everything like that. So, yeah, I think it'll be fun. I might open this up to more than just our chat, so I might tweet about it and stuff like that too. So it could be a fun thing if you guys want to check that out. Yeah, we might do a little cash prize for this, I think, honestly. So it's not gonna be anything crazy. It's not gonna be like $1,000, but I'm thinking, yeah, I've got some ideas for what the cash prize is gonna be. Some crack theory will win. Yeah, maybe. We'll do, I'll pick a winner, and then I'll also look at what has the most votes at the end of the day. So, yeah, I think it'll be fun. So definitely go get, I mean, you know the site. It's pretty easy to navigate. And I already have the link pinned here. So this link is for chapter predictions and such. But, yeah, definitely go check that out, get your theories in. Because it's very hard to do theory competitions on stream when it requires me being able to read all of them back to back. And that's hard to do if you're just submitting them in chat, because chat is limited by how much you can send. So yeah. Yeah. Definitely get that in. Definitely get those in. Grizzly Adams, thanks for the 5. Do you think Joy Boy had a pair of wings who will show up in the present day? What would their role be? That is a great question. I think so, and I think the direction that this goes is kind of dangerous. So let me show this. This is kind of cool. Hold on. Okay. Oh, Emu puts a hole through Usopp, Ace style. I don't think that happens next chapter, but if it does, that is a phenomenal call. That is a phenomenal call. I'm voting no for that, though. Luffy and Loki team up to fight Emu because they realize they can't fight him on their own. I mean, that's a yes, but it's just like... I'll just say this. I'll say this, which is that even though I'm going to vote yes, this would not be marked as a winner of the chapter predictions contest because it's too simple of a theory. They're already essentially doing that. You know what I mean? I might vote no against this just because I want to upvote predictions that I think are a little bit more interesting. Does that make sense? So not because I don't think that it's going to happen, but just in terms of what I think is a cool prediction. So there's not the most logic to this, but you know what? Just do as you will do, you know? Yeah, let me show you what I think about the... So I just dropped a video talking about Joy Boy's crew. Seems like people really enjoyed that one. I thought that people were going to be like, this is BS. Legitimately. So sometimes I don't know what theories will resonate with you guys or not. Like, there's some theories that I'm like, damn, this is a fucking good-ass theory. I'm excited to share this one. I think this is true. And sometimes I put out a theory and I'm like, they're not gonna like this. And then it's like, oh shit, people really fucked with this theory. Okay, hold on. Hold on. Let me create some art here. All right, here we go. Okay. So, I personally think... Wait. Hold on. We're getting there. The fuck? What? Oh my god. Hold on. Okay. Let me create my art. So, I think that the Will of D is basically... Hold on, how do I show this? I think the Will of D is... the members of the Dawn... Or, no, members of Joy Boy's crew. Okay, I think that's the Will of D. That makes the most sense to me. It lines up kind of with the Will of the Kozuki essentially being the Scabbards, carrying out the Will of Odin to open Wano's borders and such, okay? So, here, let me share this. Here's what I predict. Here's my guess for what we will see in terms of Joy Boy's crew, okay? From what we can tell, there are a few branches, right? Monkey family. Luffy, Garp, /Dragon, right? I think that their ancestor is Joy Boy. Okay? I think that that's just the easiest, safest guess. Joy Boy fucking looks and seemingly talks and acts like Luffy to some degree. Similar silhouette, yada yada. Okay? So, if we go forward with this theory, right? So we've got several D-Tribe members here, right? So we got Joy Boy, Captain. Okay? Fallen. Then we've got, of course, the Nefertari. Sorry if I'm spelling it poorly. Vivi, Cobra, Lily. Vivi, Cobra, yada yada yada, and then Lily back then. I'm not gonna put in any roles just yet. Not gonna put in any roles because I think roles are. We'll get to the roles, okay? Yada yada. All right. Then we've got the Teach, right? Or sorry, Zebek, right? No, it's really the Davy, right? Hold on. Yeah, really, it's Davy, right? The Davy. Yeah. Okay. Davy, right? Blackbeard / Rocks. Davy Jones. Okay. Then we've got Jaguar. So that's Saul. Back in the day, some giant, right? Then we've got Trafalgar, Law. Don't know. Then we've got Portgas. So we've got Roger, Ace, some heavy hitters, right? I'm gonna say that. And then we've got Clover, right? Clover, right? It's whatever. Clow. Some scholar nerd. All right. And then Rouge. Oh no, Portgas is. Wait. Was Portgas the Rouge? Oh no, Goal, my bad. Rouge is here. No. Yeah, sorry. Goal is here. Right? Goal is here, and then Rouge is its own thing. Rouge. It's really just. Portgas. Oh my god. Just confusing myself here. Portgas, Rouge, unknown. Okay? So, I personally think that with this lineup, we have some semblance of Joy Boy's crew. Okay? My first thought is I think Davy Jones wasn't truly a. Davy Jones, I think there's two options. Because Davy Jones was the king, right? So I think either he wasn't part of Joy Boy's crew, or he was the first mate or something like that and then betrayed Joy Boy. I think that there's two routes it goes. Because D can easily also imply like symbolic members, right? The same way Vivi's a symbolic member of the Strats. So I'm not leaning too much into this, but so I'm going to pretend that in terms of wings, right? I think in terms of if you say strong lineages, right? Let's say strong lineages. I think that the strong lineage, so like the monkey family lineage, in my opinion, is Joy Boys, right? So that's crossed off. So then we look at who would be the wings. I personally think wing number 1 is Goal. Whoever the ancestor to Roger and Ace or whatever were way back in the day, I could see that being the one of the wings of the Pirate King, you know, the Zoro to the Pirate King or whatever. Even if you just think about Ace and Luffy's relationship, their dynamic to some degree would be similar, I think, to some degree if Zoro happened to be Luffy's big brother, right? Obviously, Zoro is in actuality weaker than Luffy, right? But I'm just saying in terms of personality, etc., Ace was several years older than Luffy, yada yada, you know? So just imagine Zoro, but 3 years older than Luffy. Like, I feel like his dynamic with Luffy, just go back to the flashback back then, right? The Ace Luffy Sabo flashback. I think you could see traces of like, oh, this is probably how, if Zoro was Luffy's older brother, this is how we treat him, right? So I could easily imagine back in the day, you know, Ace's equivalent counterpart in that old era being actually the Zoro to the Joy Boy of back in the day. Does that make sense? So imagine a character that's like a bit of a mix of Roger and Ace together. I feel like that might have been Roger's wing number 1. Davy Jones, I think, might not have ever actually been part of Roger's or Joy Boy's crew. I think he was just king of Ancient Kingdom, but someone who's very close to Joy Boy that essentially also was a D, in a sense. That's my thought, okay? Then I would say, looking at the rest of the options, I think that the other strong lineage that might have been a wing, right, would be whoever Law's ancestor is. So imagine some version of Law that actually doesn't suck and actually has conquers haki and shit. I think that would... these are just like guesses based off of very little, right? But my personal guess is that Clow's ancestor was some scholar nerd, and that was like the scholar of the crew. Lily, we know, doesn't seem like she was a fighter or whatever. Saul is the descendant of some giant, but I don't think Saul is like the descendant of like some legendary giant in a sense. I think he was just the giant on Joy Boy's crew. And then of course we have stuff like, Zunisha, Emeth, Biblo. I think these are also former members of Joy Boy's crew. It's possible that they've been transformed. For all we know, Zunisha or Emeth or like Zunisha could be a transformed version of one of Joy Boy's crew members. Maybe of the fucking Trafalgar line or the Gold line. We don't know, right? So I'm trying not to account for Zunisha and Emeth because it could be any of these characters. Rouge, I don't know. Too little to say, right? Too little to say. But anyway, this is just what do you call? El Morge, Law's ancestor, is a doctor. His family was doctor lineage. Sure, but that's like fucking saying that Sanji can't be the wing of what? That's not relevant. So Sanji can't be Luffy's wing because he's a cook and his father Zeph was a cook and he fucking comes from a cooking background. Fine, wing number 2 / doctor. We're talking about strength here, right? Talking about strength, right? Gaban is a fucking navigator, Yeah, people have other roles and shit, But Clover's ancestors, those are definitely scholar nerds. Guaranteed. They're the Robins of Joy Boy's crew. Portgas, I don't know what to make of this. Lily, I don't know if she was ever even necessarily part of the crew. Like, Lily, Davy Jones, I don't know if they're part of the crew or just Joy Boy's comrades, right? Saul, I think, again, giant, but I don't think he was the giant, Because back then, Joy Boy actually had, the God of War potentially as his giant rival or counterpart or whatever. So I imagine whoever the Jaguar ancestor was maybe, a decently strong giant, but nothing crazy or whatever. So these are my thoughts. These are my quick thoughts. And then, you add in Zunisha, Emeth, whatever the fuck they are, Biblo. Yeah. You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if Biblo is fucking Clover's ancestor, but got turned into a fucking owl or some shit. Oda could pull stuff like that. Yeah, Biblo being the scholar? Yeah. But he could be Clover, right? Because I don't think Joy Boy necessarily had just like a fucking mute owl on his crew. I personally think the fact that, Zunisha, I don't think Zunisha was always an elephant. I don't think Biblo was necessarily always an owl. There's some additional mystery to these characters, right? A lot to be uncovered. So this is really just winging it. If you just ask me, like, who are the, like, if we accept that, just as a basic premise, just to have a starting point, if we accept that the monkey line is essentially the Joy Boy line, then which other members of Joy Boy's crew would kind of be his, like, 2 strong wings, like fighters? Then I'm like, yeah, probably the Goal line and probably the Trafalgar line, right? Unless the Davy lineage turns out to also have been a member of Joy Boy's crew. Anyway, continuing on. Yeah, so I hope you guys thought that was a little bit interesting. Bilbo D. Baggins. God of War was First World, not Joy Boy's time, no. God of War is really hard to figure because what we know, here's what it's never established, right? So much of this is so far back that we don't know. But the interesting thing about the God of War is that we know that to me a lot of things suggest that it was actually Second World, because ever since the God of War went down, it seems like Ragnar has not selected a new owner, right? Now, it appears that Ragnar was the one to freeze the Galila giants, and we know that that's something that happened in the Second World, right? At the end of the Second World, most likely is what it seems, right? So, and there's even a lot of evidence at this point that Onigashima itself was pulled out of Punk Hazard and may have been the skull of the previous ancient giant wielder of Ragnar, right? So just based on the fact that, like, there's 2 options, right? Which is either the God of War was in the Second World and was the counterpart to Joy Boy, right? Or the God of War, that stuff happened in the First World, and then ever since the end of the First World, all throughout the Second World, however many hundreds, thousands of years that was, there was no Nidhogg user, and there was no Ragnar, right? Ragnar wielder, all the way until the end of the Third World with Loki. I think that's not what's been implied, because Emu, Second World character, right, clearly is familiar with Nidhogg, Ragnar, etc., the Gadala giants do seem like they were frozen by Ragnar. So there was some second world action going on with the Nidhogg user and the Ragnar wielder. So my interpretation at the moment is God of War was likely second world, therefore Joy-Boy counterpart. Deptia Treviso, thanks to the twos. Zunisha is literally 1,000 years old, greater than Joy-Boy. That's kind of... I know it's stated when Trafalgar Law arrives that at the island that Zunisha has been walking for 1,000 years, but we don't know if that's hyperbole or not, right? That's 800 years, 1,000 years. We don't know if that's hyperbole, right? Especially because Void Century, there's a lack of information as to what happened before that. Most people don't know anything about before the Void Century, you know? If they did, they'd know that there was a giant fucking flood and stuff like that, right? So we don't have evidence yet that Law's statement, like, oh, it's been 1,000 years or a millennium or whatever, is literal. Because even when I'm writing scripts and stuff, sometimes just like naturally, I don't even think about it. I write like, for the past millennium, this has been going on and stuff to talk about like the world government's oppression, because, you know, you're not being like literally precise with exact years. The point is that it's been close to 1,000 years, and the 100 years before the 800 years were basically like a void period. Yeah, sorry, we're a void period, you know. Toptio says, I don't think it is. Yeah, but we don't have any evidence either way, you know? Like, if you think about it like this, nobody in the story, unless they hardcore study history, even knows anything about what happened before the Void Century. So Law has nothing to base 1,000 years off of, you know? Because, again, this would have been before the seas flooded, right? If it was literally 1,000 years, literally a millennium, it would have been before the seas flooded. So then how would anybody know anything about Zunisha walking around back then? Because nobody even knows that the seas flooded. Tiftia says, Morgie being bad at history doesn't mean we have to be convinced by that logic. No, it's just, that's a hyperbolic way of speaking, you know? It's just language, you know? It's not like I literally think a millennium is 800 years. It's just a hyperbolic way of speaking. Again, we have no evidence that Law would actually, or any character would actually know what Zunisha was doing prior to the Void Century, because no characters outside of fucking Vegapunk have knowledge of the world prior to the Void Century. Morge legit said Toki was on Joyboy's crew, now he switched up. Oh, Toki. Yeah, sure. Throw Toki in. Throw Toki in. Oh, that's a flip thing. That's a flip thing. I forgot. Actually, that might be the other wing. Because I do believe that the Kazuki... I forgot about this. I think the Kazuki could be D's. So maybe those would be the two wings. I think the Goal lineage and then the Kazuki lineage, that might be the two wings. If Joyboy were to have two wings. Yeah, characters aren't the narrator. We have to assume they only have limited knowledge themselves. Yep. Tom, thanks for two. First, see Logia Awakening from BD or Akainu? BD. BD. Am I stupid? Who's BD? Who's BD? You're saying, did you mean to say BB, like Blackbeard? Henchme says, what if Toki and Odin were related? Toki is Amatsuki. Yeah, but I think that Kazuki and... You're right. That makes sense. I do think that there's a solid possibility that the Kazuki were D tribe members, because Odin dies with a smile on his face, number one. So Odin's death, and then on top of that, the fact that the Kazuki made the poneglyphs for Joy-Boy. So they were essentially comrades of Joy-Boy. So if the D are essentially... Everybody who's the D falls under the category of comrades of Joy-Boy, then I think the Kazuki could have been that as well. It's hard to say. Oda's really keeping that stuff in the dark at the moment. Ender says the Goldie lineage consists of a long line of middlemen who never accomplish shit. Hey, I mean, maybe that's fitting for our first mate to Joy-Boy or something like that. Yes, first seeing Logia Awakening. So Logia Awakening, again, I have my own theory as to what Logia Awakening is. I actually think that the first character we might see Logia Awakening from might be Kizaru, but it's a little complicated as to the reason why. So I don't want to get into that too much here. So I've got a theory on that. Oh, Blackbeard is a typo, made a typo, try to keep up, Unk. Yeah, I mean, I did think that it might be Blackbeard. Um, yeah, it's hard to. If Logia Awakening is what I think it is, then I think Kizaru would be the first person to use it. If it's not what I think it is, so like if it's just a general power up, then I think yeah, then I think Akainu might be our first strong debut of it, either Akainu or Aokiji. And I think Oda would save Blackbeard's Logia Awakening for last. Let's get the stream likes up to 100 real quick. Let's get the stream likes up to 100. Let me give this a quick refresh. Nami will learn from the giants how to navigate by stars, which is necessary to reach Laugh Tale. Oh, that's... I don't think that's that's a great little prediction, but I don't think that's happening next chapter, I guess I would say. Okay, so we got some voting here. All right, let me see if most votes... Okay, now it's working. Himu gives Hydruden a beatdown. This is my prediction, but this would never win a chapter prediction thing because it's too easy. Himu's raid on Elbaf will fail. This is too broad of a vote to mean anything, and I think people are just being funny here. Okay, people are liking this. Chapter primarily focused on Zora's and Sanji's fights. Yeah, we'll refresh this at the end to see what people have the highest votes for. So I'll just leave this alone for the moment. I'll just focus on you. Nami will learn from the giants how to navigate the stars. Yeah, so I'm keeping that as a no, just because I think that wouldn't happen next chapter. And even if Oda were to do something like that, I just can't imagine Oda actually doing anything meaningful in terms of Nami's navigation, you know. Like, I think Nami's navigation will come... Sorry, let me clarify. I think Oda, when he had... Okay, how to explain this? I think with the Straw Hats' various skill sets, right? So not fighting and power-ups, but their various skill sets. So Sanji cooking, Nami navigation, Robin, you know, poneglyph translating and shit like that, Chopper doctor stuff, etc. Frankie engineering, shipwright shit, you know? I think with all of those characters' skill sets, I think Oda does care about making them relevant and like useful in the story at various points, and having the characters grow in those areas. I think Oda is not interested in getting into mechanics of that sort of thing in terms of growth. So by that I mean, for example, Oda likes the idea of, like, let's say, Chopper's doctor stuff saving the day. Let's say that's the case, right? In something like Zoe, you know? Right? But I don't think Oda is interested in actually writing a chapter or a scene where Chopper kind of has, like, that focuses on Chopper's growth as a doctor, like him actually, like, getting into anything even moderately, like, at a very basic level technical, like Chopper realizing, oh, I'm putting together my experience from this and having a sort of breakthrough, right? Or, you know, Sanji and Whole Cake Island. From what I remember with Sanji and Whole Cake Island, when it was time to bake the cake, we got a little bit into, like, the cooking stuff or and stuff, but in terms of actually, like, Sanji having a moment where he grows as a cook, where he has, like, an epiphany or something like that, I think that's never going to happen in the story. I think that's why in the time skip, Oda essentially put all the Straw Hats in spots where it's like, okay, they will have moments of growth here and they'll realize something, right? Like Sanji will learn new Kama recipes, Chopper will learn pharmaceutical shit, right? Nami will learn more stuff about the weather, but Oda doesn't actually want to delve into the how. I think he just wants the Straw Hats to come out basically like, okay, they learned this stuff and so now they're just better at it, you know? So I think this is an example of getting into the mechanics of navigating a little bit, like Nami having... Oda's fine doing that with stuff like Haki. Like, Oda will spend time having Luffy learn the mechanics of Haki and Udon or in the Kaikuri fight and improve in that, right? He'll get in the nitty-gritty of that a little bit, even if he's not the most consistent with how it's applied. But with the Straw Hats, you know, unless it's simple stuff like Chopper being like, ice is countered by fire! Guys, I know how to deal with the Ice Onis, right? Like, unless it's something really simple like that, I don't think Oda's ever going to actually delve into... Like, if Oda just finds it important that Chopper cures some stuff, I think it's just like, oh, here's a chapter where Chopper sits down, works on some stuff, and then Zoe is cured, you know? Or, like, Chopper sits down, works on some stuff, and, like, the Punk Hazard kids are better to some degree, you know? I think the same thing with the navigation. Maybe Oda surprises me, but I just don't know if I would necessarily bet on, in general, Oda actually getting into even moderately the nitty-gritty of navigation, which is like having Nami look at the stars or something like that, you know? Mr. MMF2, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 46 months. Yo, Lord Jesse, did you finish Wukong? Also, I predict Bum Rujin will get packed. Unfortunately, that prediction is already up, but yeah, that's a solid prediction. Did I finish Wukong? No, I still have to finish Wukong. When I pick it up, I'm gonna have to start at the Yellow Luong again. I don't know how it's pronounced. Yellow Lung. I don't know. I'll have to start on him again, and I remember he was like a serious hurdle for me. And I remember I had to spend like hours getting the patterns down and still didn't finish. And now I'm gonna have to relearn the whole thing from scratch, so that's gonna be a pain in the ass. Because it's been, I think I dropped that game in February. I was like, when I'm less busy, I'll get back to playing this game. That window's not yet come. But I do really look forward to playing that again. I had a lot of fun with it. And I know that a new, game with similar mechanics and style from the same developers is coming out. So I'm excited for that. Because Black Myth has a great foundation. I think they could really build on that. Like, there's so many ways to improve this game. I would say with Black Myth, what is it? Yeah, the Yellow Luong fight, that was honestly brutal. Because I found it to be harder for me. Everyone has different things that they struggle with. For me, I found it to be harder than any From Software boss I'd ever encountered. Yeah, I think legitimately harder than any From Software boss I'd ever encountered. Or at least was taking me more time. And I haven't played Elden Ring, though. I played the other ones. So, Elden Ring, I don't know about Millennia and all that shit, but for me, Yellow Luong I found harder than any of the... Out of the FromSoft games I've played, I found it harder to beat him. I was fighting him relatively early, I think. From what I'm reading, a lot of people get to Chapter 5, then go back to fight him, so I think I'm taking him on a little bit earlier than... I'm taking him on towards the beginning of Chapter 4. But I don't know if that's, a solid excuse. I'm like... Do I just need to get my stats better or better weapons and stuff? Or should I be able to do this now? I don't know. Anyway, but I like that game quite a bit. Thomas Davis 1340, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 39 months. I could actually see the Gold lineage being a cabin boy / Kobe type character to Joy Boy just for fun. The Gold lineage being a cabin boy / Kobe type character to Joy Boy. Oh, that would be funny. Yeah, that could be funny. Because it's kind of hard to imagine someone like a Roger or an Ace being a subordinate to anyone, unless they were a cabin boy, Anime Fanatic, thanks for the 2. 3,000 years on Elbaf is the original Emeth from the Nika era. Yeah, maybe. I mean, the Ancient Lab opens up so many questions. Yeah. Again, I don't think there's a true Nika era because I don't think that Nika ever existed in the One Piece world for real. Or whether Nika did or not is not going to be answered. To me, it's just, when people say the Nika era, I interpret it as just the first world user of the Nika fruit, basically. I don't think that there literally ever was a god Nika. Because if there was a god Nika, they would have fucking showed up by now to kick Imu's ass, right? That's the whole point of it. So, to me, the whole message of One Piece and the messaging that's been reiterated since Egghead is kind of like the power of your beliefs, right? So if you believe enough that a god named Nika will come save you and everything, then yeah, it'll happen, That's the power of beliefs. But beliefs turning something into reality rather than that god already having been real from the beginning, That's just my thought, but I mean, to me, I think I don't know if Oda's ever gonna answer that. Bubble Bass says Ace was literally Whitebeard's subordinate. Yeah, but he had to beat that shit into him, right? And he had to beat that into him and kind of mold him into and prey on his desire to have a father and everything like that. And even then, Whitebeard was basically not actually turning Ace into a subordinate, but rather his successor, right? So not exactly the same thing. Unless we get, Joy Boy beating the shit out of the original Goal character, for 2 years and kind of using his daddy issues to eventually turn him into a subordinate. I just don't know if you know, I can't imagine someone like Roger actually working for anyone, even if it is Joy Boy. Retro Records 28, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 47 months. Luffy goes out of Gear 5 because he thinks they won with that attack after they knock him away. Also, the channel getting stolen remind you of the car. It did later, because there were jokes and stuff about that later, especially on stream. But it's really not the same. Because losing the first time the car got stolen, that was really wild. But at the same time, I was like, this isn't the end of the world. This is just really bad. The second time the car got stolen, I was like, oh my god, this is a huge headache. Because now I knew the processes that are involved to getting the car back, you know? And so it wasn't like, I wasn't like totally lost. So, yeah, with losing the channel, again, it's not like it's the end of the world, but it is a much bigger life impact in the sense it's kind of like, okay, planning for life having the channel or planning for life not having the channel, those are two very elaborate plans that I gotta basically figure out, you know? That's a pretty crazy fork in the road for me that I've got to figure out. Either way, it wouldn't be the end of the world, but it would be it's a much more drastic thing that I kind of gotta mentally sort of, strategize for, basically, and start taking steps for. Whereas with the car, it's kind of like, even the first time I lost the car, it's like, okay, planning for buying a new car, potentially, and what would that car be, is kind of like the direction it started going, you know? The other thing with the channel is also there's much more sentimental value that I don't think I even fully realized until until I didn't have the channel momentarily, and it was kind of just like I realized I was like, honestly, even if I never get the channel back, right? I just really don't want the person who has it to like delete all my videos, you know? Even if they keep posting Roblox videos and stuff, I don't want them to delete the videos. Like, even if in a world where I just never get the channel back, now it's forever their channel, I think the feeling of knowing that they could just delete all of the stuff I've created over so many years, just like that really, I didn't like that feeling at all. It's just like, fuck, like, again, my thoughts started going in my head. I was like, I would love to be able to show, my kids in the future that this is something that I did, something, that I didn't realize all of those thoughts till it was kind of gone. Whereas, when you lose the car, it's kind of like, fuck, this is a big inconvenience. When I lost the channel, it's kind of like, oh, I didn't realize that I would feel like I'm missing a big part of me, my life, like this, like that. Brandon E6146 says, just say you love us, we love you too, boys. Alright. We're not gonna get into any of that, but you don't fully appreciate what you got till it's gone. It's very cliche, but it is true to some degree. One Piece fan 74, thanks to the 5. I love Kaido slander, but other strong characters like Kizaru and Gaban keep recognizing Luffy not as a Yonko, but as the man who beat Kaido. Yeah, and I think that that's kind of what do you call? To me, that's, how do I say this? To me, that's it is Kaido hype in a way, but to me, it's also kind of, I wouldn't say Kaido downscale, but it's also just like, how do I put this? The world views it as Luffy is the man who beat Kaido, right? We, the viewers or readers, know that there's a lot more processes involved, but the word on the street, basically, much like Kaido became Rumor Man, right? The guy you bet on in a 1v1, it appears that the rumors have essentially become Luffy beat Kaido, right? In the first place, that in and of itself, ironically, hurts Kaido's case, right? Because Kaido's rumors of him being the man that beats everyone in a 1v1, it kind of just goes to show you literally can't believe rumors, because now the rumor is that Luffy beat Kaido 1v1, right? And we know that's not true. Luffy is not the man who beat Kaido solo, right? Like a lot of people seem to believe, okay? So it's kind of like, well, if this is just how rumors work, the same applies to Kaido, which is that just because people got the impression that he's the one to bet on in a 1v1, obviously doesn't mean it's the case, right? Now, number two, Kizaru thought that Luffy's the man who beat Kaido, and at the same time, Kizaru, if I remember correctly, I think like Kizaru was like completely fairly handling Luffy in Gear 4th. So it's, you can view it two ways, which is kind of like Kizaru simultaneously views Luffy as the man who beat Kaido, and at the same time thinks that the level Luffy's fighting at right now is enough to beat Kaido. Does that make sense? Because Kizaru is essentially like, Gear 4th Luffy. Yep, this is probably enough to beat Kaido. So to me, it's kind of Kaido downscale. Gaban was saying, you're the man who beat Kaido, but you wouldn't be able to beat Loki. That's essentially what Gaban was saying to Luffy right then. So again, that's Kaido downscale. He's like, you might have beaten Kaido, but nobody's gonna, like, we can't let Loki lose because that dude's just unstoppable, right? And then Gaban himself was like, people say you beat Kaido, and then Gaban seemed to be totally unfazed while fighting, like, while trying to take on Luffy, So I wouldn't say that these are... I think it's cool that Kaido has the reputation of, like, damn, you're the person that beat, Luffy beat Kaido, people know that. But at the same time, people's actions and implications around that also suggest that they don't think that Luffy beating Kaido means Luffy's the end-all, be-all. You know what I mean? Whereas that's what a lot of Kaido fans thought initially, that Kaido's the end-all, be-all. Whereas he's frankly not that high up the list, even of characters alive today. I wouldn't say not that high up the list, but he's definitely not at the top, Like, if you really want to... This is not a great analogy, but I just want to point out, like, people literally, like... Moria and Kuma were talking about how Luffy's the man who beat Lucci, therefore he's very strong, right? Just because characters acknowledge who you've beaten doesn't mean that they're like... It's not like Moria and Kuma are like, that means Lucci's above us and Luffy's above us, you know what I mean? Kaido's just a very strong character. Other strong characters respect the fact that Luffy beat Kaido, but they're clearly not just assuming that if you beat Kaido, that means that you are now stronger than me or a lot of other characters, Henchme987, thanks for the 10. My theory is that the ancient weapons define the figures of the Void Century. Joyboy's crew sailed on Pluton, Emu had Uranus, and Nidhogg user was Poseidon's friend/lover. This is mainly to push Loki times Shirahoshi. That's a really great theory. I like that a lot, because those are kind of the three strongest characters of that era. I love that theory. That's a great, great, great idea. But the thing is that it sounds like the Ancient Kingdom had all the ancient weapons initially, so I don't know if that's 100% true. But symbolically, I get what you're getting at. That's a really cool way to put it. Topus's Kaido might not even be top 25 end of story. So I think that that's a stretch, but I would just say... How would I say this? I think that you would have okay, I think that there's going to be a group of characters where, like, we don't really have answers for. You know what I mean? Today, if you asked some people, would Prime Rayleigh, Prime Gaban be stronger than Prime Kaido Big Mom, you will get different answers from different people. So that's kind of how I view... I think you will have some people in the story who are putting Kaido still top 15 or something like that, or top 10, but some people much lower, and a lot of it's going to come down to a lot of these ambiguous type groupings, So, like, because you could easily be like, if you look at a group like Roger, Whitebeard, Harold, Rox, and Garp, right? Like, let's say, let's say we take those 5 characters, right? There's you could shuffle around that group of characters a bunch of different ways and not really be wrong, like it's so like you could put fucking Rox, you could put Harold at number 1 on that list, you could put Harold number 5 on that list, right? So because there's a solid range where you could put someone like Harold and you'd still have a decent argument, some people's lists at the end of the day might be like, oh my god, you have Harold at like 15 and not in the top 10 or something, and then other lists might be like, you have Harold at 10 and then you've got fucking Whitebeard or something at 15, because there's a nice range that all of these characters can kind of be grouped in. So does that make sense? Like, because there's solid ranges where lots of characters can be grouped in, you can have things that seem like extreme takes, but it's really like, no, I think any of these characters could be rearranged a lot of different ways, you know? I do think because we're gonna get context on all the three worlds, here's my feeling. My feeling is end of story. Whatever power scaling thing I may or may not do stream-wise or whatever end of story, my feeling is it's gonna be so hard to compare across worlds because it's like, how do we even compare, the Nika user from the first world, the Earth God user from the first world, stuff like that, to then fucking, like, how do I compare the ancestor of Gold Roger from Joy Boy's era to fucking the real Gold Roger, How do I fucking compare the ancient version of the Kazuki to Odin, right? Like, unless characters get sent forward in the future, like my prediction was, right? But that's a theory, right? At the end of the day, we're not going to have enough to go off of to actually make solid, like the second world alone is already populating really fast between Joy Boy, Davy Jones, the God of War, Emu, the ancestor of Gold Roger, the ancestor of all of these D-Tribe members, right? Like, it's already populating really fast with a lot of characters who could all arguably be top 10 or top 15 or whatever by the end of the story. So my feeling is I'm just going to be ranking third world characters at the end of the day. Third world characters and characters who potentially made it from the second world to the third world. That's all I'm going to do. Okay, I'm not going to fucking touch the first world unless we have concrete comparisons. Yeah, that's my thought. So I can't imagine at the end of the day Kaido not being top 25 in the third world rankings, That's all. Yeah, it's kind of like already when people are like, how do you when tier lists and stuff try to rank characters like Silver Axe or Captain John, I think if I make a tier list or all-time top 30, I literally would not know what the fuck to do with them. I would have no idea where to put them. It would just I might only do characters that have a certain amount of information to go off of, and I think I might need to figure out some cutoffs that make sense. Somehow these streams are always dragged down to power scaling. I mean, it just kind of happens. It's the easiest topic that comes up that sparks debate, Ray Uchiha, thanks for the 10. I'm at work and on my phone, so I cannot use the site. Does it not work on the site? Or does it not work on the phone? I should find out. Prediction, Jarl will pull out Herald, sword, and give it to Hajruden. Wouldn't he die? The sword will still have some of Herald's haki and will injure Emu. That's a really interesting theory, but doesn't Herald just die if that happens? If that happens next chapter, even though this isn't being put on the whimsical board, I will remember you because that's such a specific prediction, and I will put you among the chapter prediction winners. Like, if Jarl pulls a sword out, I feel like he's got to die. Mihawk the Goat, 32, thanks for the 5. Is it possible that Mihawk, Shanks, and Dragon are closer in strength to Joy Boy and Emu than Roger and Whitebeard? I definitely think it's possible. But that's all I'll say. I'll just say it's possible. I'm not making any takes on that till we get some more showings, evidence, whatever. Yeah, blood would start spurting out like a faucet. I have my fingers crossed for Bonnie de-aging Jarl. Fingers crossed. Are we caught up on these? Looks like we're caught up on these. Got a couple more to vote on. Biblo tells... Oh, whoops. Okay, we got a few more to vote on. Biblo tells Chopper what Maki is and how it works. I don't think that's going to happen when Gunko... Whoa! That's pretty dark for One Piece. When Gunko's immortality is reversed, Brook will watch her turn into a skeleton. I don't know about that. Emu is unfazed by the group attack. We see what this new form Emu can do against Loki and Luffy. Maki is not used as orbs in this form. Sure, I'll say it's like a viable theory. Sanji will have monologue and dialogue, and it will be en route to conquer Zaki, although not yet. Usopp does something. Sure, I like this theory. I just don't know if it's if Oda's gonna focus on it. I don't know if the chapter's going to focus on those two characters. I do think it has to swap over to Sanji and Zoro really soon, and I think Sanji's fight will conclude before Zoro's, because Oda usually does that. I think the one exception was, funnily enough, Arlong Park is one of the rare arcs Oda kind of went in reverse, where Zoro's fight actually ends first, and then I think Sanji, and then I think Usopp. I think it's in that order. Might be misremembering slightly. I know Zoro's is first. I don't know if Sanji or Usopp comes next. Yeah, but then every other major storyline since then, Zoro's is the second to last fight to conclude. Kidsmini94, thanks for the 5. If Jarl pulls the sword out while in Dom Reversi, will he just flip back healed? Whoa, that'd be crazy. That'd be really interesting. I don't know. That'd be really interesting. Yeah, like, for example, how will I rank Prime Jarl at the end of the story? We have so little information. Retired old men, yeah. Yeah, the old geezers are hard to rate. Let's get the stream likes up to 100 real quick. Q-Tip says, I think the next chapter kind of has to be about Imu's new form now. I think we'll get to see a bit of it. I feel like we'll get to see a bit of it. I don't know. Again, Oda has to start cutting away to the other fights, right? So I think we might get to see a bit of it. And then from there, see Sanji Zoro fights wrap. And then we get to continue to see the rest of Imu's fight as it plays out. My big question mark with Imu's new form is kind of just like, I wonder if Oda jumped the gun a bit with, not jumped the gun, and Oda knows what he's doing with it. I feel like Oda's planned this fight out pretty carefully, because the emotional beats and storytelling of this fight all make they flow very well. But usually when a character powers up or transforms, right, generally speaking, it's because, like a villain, right, like when a villain powers up or transforms, generally speaking, it's because they kind of get pushed to the limit in their normal form, and then they have to power up to show their, to really take off the weights and fuck everyone up. What's interesting is that we never really got a sense of Imu being pushed whatsoever in his current form, right? Like, if Oda is like, oh, I need to upgrade Imu to a second form so that he can take on Luffy and Loki at the same time, I mean, kind of feels like Imu could have already done that in his base form. You know what I mean? I think it's possible that in later, as things go on, we might look back with more appreciation for Loki's performance against Imu the first time around, because the more I think about it, I don't think that Imu could have just ended the fight right away like a lot of people seem to think. I think Loki legitimately held out for some time, because Loki has no reason to stall, especially if people think he's on a timer or whatever. He has no reason to really hold back. Like, he immediately took out Zoro and Sanji right away, I think that Loki actually was strong enough in that form that Imu couldn't just easily put him down until, time went on or whatever. So I think that's why the second form kind of makes sense. So I think that might be how Oda views it. That, Imu versus Loki with Imu's base form is enough of a challenge for Imu that it wouldn't make sense for Imu in that form to be taking on Luffy and Loki at the same time. Therefore, Oda put Imu into a second form. That's my thoughts, but, who knows? Who knows? I think we just gotta wait and see. Taptia says, I think him being pushed is not being able to clearly kill Gaban easily. But, I mean, he took out Gaban's arm the moment he started using Maki. I don't think that that's really the case. I mean, I think Imu had to put in much. I think Imu did a lot less to take out Gaban. Like, his first Maki attack immediately took out Gaban compared to Loki, personally. But people might have different interpretations of that. I don't know. Let's see the next chapter. Why aren't the M's in the channel account name capitalized anymore? Oh my god, what's going on? Let me see. Oh my god. Yeah, I don't like that. Alright, I'll make a little note to make sure this is changed here. Hold on. Hold on. Alright. Lil Emu says, I think Emu is just a shapeshifter, as he can shift to, forms to whatever he feels is suitable to the situation, like if Luffy created Gear 4th variants of Gear 5, if that makes sense. I could see that. I just think that, to me, this form seems like it's implied to be a power-up. I guess the difference would be this form uses more force? I don't know. Tom says, good thing I'm autistic enough to notice that. What would we do without me? Yeah, that is helpful. Thank you. Henchme says they're capitalized on my app. I don't know. I mean, it's the specifically the account name. I think the channel is still capitalized, but the at Mr. Morge is now lowercase. Yeah, like look at the pinned message. Good point. Emu after being beaten out of this form. This set of armor used to contain my immeasurable, irresistible, and overwhelming power has been broken. So, you know what's funny? It's just like, you just really have to hand it to Dragon Ball Z, in the sense that, as far, to my knowledge, that was the first manga anime to really lean into the power-ups and transformations thing, right? Not power-ups necessarily, but at least the transformations thing, you know? Like, transformation after transformation, right? Power-up after, like, you know what I mean. And even though they were the first to do it, as far as I know, even though Toriyama was the first to do it, he fucking nailed the concept the first time around. You know what I mean? Like, just it's kind of like all the creative ideas that people kind of copy and pull from now. Like, he already milked the shit out. Like, he did it so well that now anytime he did it so well in the concept of like, okay, first of all, this isn't even Frieza's final form or whatever. Like, this is just his base form, and he's already like the most powerful being in existence, right? So that was concept number one. And then but then to have it be like, okay, he's got another power up, and then it's like, no, the second form is not even his main power up. Then he's got another power up. It's like, oh my god, 3 power ups, and then it's like, no, all of those were just build up. His true form is like taking off all of that and stuff like that, and his true form is actually like there weren't even power ups all along. It was just containing his true form, which is like so ridiculously powerful, right? That's like a lot of creative steps all in one go. You know, you would think that it's for even just the concept of like my true form is actually my final form, right? My final form is actually my true form, in the sense that like those weren't even really power-ups. Those are actually just me getting closer to what I normally am. That's very innovative, and to come up with that many, like that whole sequence of escalation and then those reveals and everything like that, that's very elaborate to come up with for the first time around for doing that. And then to come up with another power-up even when he's in his true form, etc., etc. I don't know. Takashi also started some trends with that villain in Yu Yu Hakusho. Yeah, what is it? Toguro. Toguro. I mean, like, Toguro was always very cool with the percentage increases and stuff, but the Frieza situation just took the whole thing to a totally different level, in my opinion. LARP says, meh, artificial hype, edging the reader. I think you say that now, when it's like 30 years later. That's not really the same, you know, you wouldn't have the same opinion back then. Yu Yu Hakusho I'll always feel sad about because of the final arc. I feel like the arc before the final arc had so much potential, but the arc before the final arc was like so good. It's one of my favorite arcs. Sorry, Yu Yu Hakusho. I think back to back the tournament arc and then the Sensui arc. I just don't remember what the name of that arc is. Chapter Black or something. I don't remember exactly the name of that arc. That's a phenomenal arc, especially in the manga. It's like absolutely phenomenal. I think I watched some of the fights of the Sensui arc in the anime. Those hold up as well, in my opinion. It's just it ended so poorly. It ends so poorly. Yeah. Momans 101 says, where predictions? Prediction, Emu drops, lore, Maki works. Predictions, just go to the site that I pinned, Lore Square, get your predictions in, and so now we're actually seeing in real time how people are voting the predictions. So we'll see whose prediction has got the most votes at the end of this stream, but the chapter prediction winners, the traditional chapter predictions winners, I'll be looking when, the next One Piece chapter 1192 comes out, and I'll be picking from here. The big rule that I'm going to try and make very clear in this stream, is just because you get a prediction right here does not mean you'll automatically be part of the chapter prediction winners if I deem that prediction to be too easy, Worst fucking ending of all time, says LARP Lodger Lightbeard. Yeah, I've always viewed it as, I don't think there can be a worse ending than that, because it's literally just like no ending. It's just like the ending gets off-screened. The entire ending gets off-screen. So, I've always viewed it as like a spectrum. Oh, well, let me address this prediction. Emu drops lore about how Maki works. Yeah, please just go over to Lore Square and drop it there. Yeah, for me, the spectrum of endings is kind of like, what's a series that I consider to have like a great ending? Like, the ending is like a high point of the story. What's an anime that I consider to have that? I don't count Fire Punch, it's too short. So I'm saying like something a little bit longer. Something that I consider to have a truly great ending. The Chainsaw Man Part 1, again, too short. More long-form series. Truly great ending. Maybe for like fucking Avatar The Last Airbender? Like, I would say great ending as in like genuinely good, like the ending is a high point of the story, right? I would say that's all the way over here for one end of the spectrum, right? High point of the story. I would say ending that I consider good is like Full Metal Alchemist. I don't think Full Metal Alchemist's ending is... I think it ties everything well together. I just don't think it's phenomenal, and I think it's a little bit anticlimactic with the way the whole conflict resolves and kind of how like the core philosophical questions are kind of addressed, but I think it's good. Like, I think it checks off everything it needs to check off. I think it's good. Then I think you get a bit further and then get to like Naruto's ending, where I legitimately don't think Naruto's whole ending is bad. I think it hits a lot of the key points that it needs to hit. It's just kind of not the best. It leaves you wanting in many, like, it's like people say stuff like Wano's highs and lows and stuff. I would say like Naruto's final saga, I think it's actually got some cool moments and stuff, especially Naruto versus Sasuke and everything, but it's got so many lows. Like, it's just not a good ending, and it doesn't give you a satisfying resolution of the series. And a lot of the series' worst aspects kind of come into play there, right? And then you get a little bit further and you get to like Thousand Year Blood War. In the manga, not in the anime, but in the manga, Thousand Year Blood War, absurdly rushed, frankly stupid, lots of Deus Ex Machina, unresolved shit, things thrown out the window, yada yada yada. Like, with Naruto, I would say, like, Naruto put as a better ending, manga-wise, than Thousand Year Blood War, simply because with Naruto, things weren't really left out. He tried to do everything for all the characters, he tried to close all of the threads, yada yada. It just wasn't done in a satisfactory manner, and he went too far with Kaguya shit and dumb shit. Just dumb stuff that clearly was the plan for a while, but it just wasn't a good plan, like fucking Obito, Toby, yada yada. Thousand Year Blood War, it was like, it felt like there was no fucking plan. It felt like Kubo was genuinely rushed to finish the series, and that is actually the case, right? And then you get finally all the way to the end, which is Yu Yu Hakusho, where it's like, we don't even get an ending. We get a character explaining to us what the ending was. And that's kind of, I think, short of just... I don't think it can get worse than that, short of there being no... Like, I don't know what could have been worse. I guess not having a character even explain what the ending was, but that's essentially the same thing, right? So, to me, that's kind of my spectrum of endings that I, for me, as long as One Piece gets a Full Metal Alchemist or up, I'm very, very happy. I personally think with One Piece, I think One Piece's floor, in my opinion, is a Naruto-style ending, but I don't know. Yeah, Thousand Year Blood War, I'm talking about the manga, not the anime. The anime, I think, is going to have... I think by all rights, it should have one of the best anime endings of all time. Because the author doesn't have to write week to week. He doesn't have to write week to week. He gets to... He spent a decade rethinking the ending and replanning the whole thing to make it perfect, right? The ending should be one of the best endings of all time. I'm super excited for tomorrow's episode. Loved last episode is... The episode that just came out is, to me, one of the best anime episodes I've ever seen. Easily. Spirit Circle. Okay, I'll write that down. Spirit Circle. What's Spirit Circle? Is it old? New? 2012 to 2016. Sure, I wrote that down. We'll see. Ceiling Stains says, what about points where the manga appropriately ends, but then keeps going? I'm thinking of Hunter x Hunter chapter 339 in particular. I just don't really know how to rate those. Yeah, I think Hunter x Hunter, if you want to go by that, like, let's say you're a Hunter x Hunter anime-only person and you get to the end of it, and it's like, oh, well, this was the end of the series. I consider that, to be a strong ending, It's just, like... It's not really an ending, though, because there's so many plot threads that still have to be resolved. Like, even just running character things, like the Hisoka Gon thing is never resolved. I guess really the main thing, though, that's not resolved is really just, like, what happens next, like going to the Dark Continent. So, yeah, Hunter x Hunter, it's actually very difficult to say. It's very difficult to say. Kurapika, that's the other big thing. So, I would say, actually, out of Hunter x Hunter's 4 biggest characters... which is Gon, Killua, Kurapika, Hisoka, right? Even if you view the ending of the anime ending as like, a way to end the series, Kurapika's storyline is not concluded, Hisoka's storyline is not concluded, and it does end by opening up a huge new plot thread that basically can't be concluded, and Netero's final words and stuff like that. There's so much that's left up in the air with, like, what's going to happen now with the Hunter Association, Pariston, yada yada. So, I can't say it feels like a true ending. So, for example, Chainsaw Man Part 1, the way that ends, that feels like a true point where it's like, okay, you could call the series done, and it's pretty much just done. The only true loose thread is kind of like Denji reuniting with Power, but it's kind of like the characters reached a good concluding point for their character dynamic. Now it's just a task that Denji needs to do. So it's not quite that big of an open thread. But I exclude Chainsaw Man Part 1 because it's too short. It's easy to write. You should be able to write a good ending for a short series because you only have to plan so much, right? Same reason I don't include JoJo's parts into this, not including Fire Punch, etc., right? Long-running series, that's the stuff that's hard to end. Virgil Hawkins, good to see you. Thanks for being a Pirate King tournament for 47 months. Haikyuu ends perfectly, and that's why you need to finish that series. What shows are you watching right now? You should check out Lanterns. Only 2 episodes so far, and it's just straight up high-quality TV. So, have not had time to really start a new show, but funnily enough, Lanterns is the exception. We wanted something to eat while we were watching dinner, so we put on the first episode. Randomly really fucking good TV, and we haven't even finished the first episode. Because we only had so much time. So there's still, I think, 20 minutes left of the first episode, but it's randomly fucking good. I'm kind of annoyed. I'm like, why is this random fucking show about Green Lantern cops, but on Earth, actually well made. It's bizarre. It's really funny. Um, is this part of the DC, like the James Gunn universe? Like, or if we're calling it that, like, is this in the same universe as Superman? If so, it feels weird. It doesn't feel stylistic, like tonally, it just doesn't feel remotely the same. It feels way too grounded, but it's very good. Kind of like, you know how like the Penguin TV series, easily feels like it fits the universe of the Batman movie that it's connected to, that universe, the Batman universe. It feels congruent. It feels like I'm in the same world. This doesn't feel similar to the Superman universe that we got, but I don't even know the full details. Like, is it part of the same universe? I don't know. But I mean, that's on its own as a standalone. It's a good show so far. Yeah, Haikyuu. Maybe I will try to finish Haikyuu soon. That is like a thing. Yeah, it's Gun Universe, but it feels so different. That's like a pet peeve of mine, which is it's hard for me to feel immersed in a universe if it doesn't feel like one universe, you know? I guess I would say. So, but that's like a pet peeve. That's not a critique of the Superman movie or the Lanterns TV show. It's kind of just my enjoyment of the universe overall. But that's like a personal thing. Virgil Hawkins says, I think that's a good thing that it feels different. For me, it's immersion breaking. It doesn't have to follow the same style necessarily, but in terms of just the feel of things. So frankly, for example, I have, like a lot of people have so many issues with the new Star Wars, obviously very warranted. I have always struggled to even reconcile in my head that the original Star Wars and the prequel trilogy are all one story and universe, because the prequel trilogy just feels so jarringly different in terms of like, it's not even like effects and visuals and stuff. The feel of the story, the feel of the way the universe, like how grounded does it feel, how characters talk, act, things like that. It all feels wildly different. It feels like a whole different concept that happens to have a lot of the same stuff, like lightsabers and shit like that. I just can't watch one and feel like the first trilogy and then feel congruent with the next trilogy all being part of the same story, because I'm like, it's just, it feels like a totally different IP, you know? Same thing with like the Hobbit trilogy versus the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Wildly different. Like, it just, one feels like a cartoon, the other feels like a very serious mythological work, you know? The Hobbit almost fucking ruins my enjoyment of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, even though, funnily enough, I like the Hobbit trilogy fine on its own. But if you try and tell me that I need to connect that to the existing Lord of the Rings trilogy and be like, this is all one thing, I'm like, no, I feel like this kind of makes the whole universe feel kind of silly, when originally it felt like the Lord of the Rings movie felt very strong. Keep in mind, I've actually read the Lord of the Rings books. I've never read the Hobbit book. So, I wonder if book readers feel that way. Anyway. Virgil Hawkins says, I would rather that they feel comfortable delving into different genres for different characters and stories. It's more interesting to me than what they do with the MCU. I agree to some degree, but I agree to some degree. Like, creatively, it's more interesting. In terms of my immersion in the universe, I guess that's all I can say. It's just a immersion in the universe type thing. TomTom says, James Gunn has said that one of the goals with the DCU is to have many different tones throughout its projects. Yeah, I guess, we'll see. That's got its own merits. Virgil Hawkins says, the prequels are completely different, and I don't understand why people act like they feel cohesive with the original. Yeah, I mean, even just, nothing feels similar to me about the prequels to the originals. It's just, yeah. It's I don't know. like for me it's kind of jarring. It's just like I'm supposed to feel like this is Star Wars, but I'm like this is just a whole different thing. It like watching it, you know, kind of like the Jurassic Park. The first movie feels totally different from the fucking Jurassic World movies. So just because we're told it's in the same universe and it pulls the same characters and plot points, I'm saying like artistically, yeah, there's just a lack of coherence. Ender says more to the One Piece fan prefers when a franchise is nothing but rehashes. I'm just saying make it all feel the same. Like get creative storyline wise and character wise and everything like that, but I guess make me feel like it's taking place in the same universe. That's my feeling. Virgil says, I think a movie series is different to having a connected universe. I mean, like, yeah, if you look at comics, obviously, like, solo Batman comics have a different feel to, you know, solo Superman comics versus, like, Justice League comics, yada yada. New trilogies neither. We don't really talk about the new trilogies, yeah. Henchby says prequels are better than the original trilogy due to prequel memes. We need memes for the sequel trilogy. I mean, we do. Like, somehow Palpatine Returned, I think, has become a big enough meme. It doesn't really get much bigger than that. Tiptia says, Mords, that's a completely arbitrary and useless metric to go on. It's called art. I don't really know how to... I don't really know how to explain artistic appreciation. Julian Reed said, missed my prediction, I think. Okay, hold on. Late to stream, I think we get an update on Kid. Fuck, that would be fucking crazy. Okay, wait, go to Lore Square to post your prediction. Go to Lore Square to post your prediction, because that's what we're doing it on for this stream. Winners for chapter predictions will still be selected through Lore Square, but I'll be filtering out ones that I think are too easy. Emo will hint at what Toki ran from into the future. She ran from the flood. When she teleported, the sea wasn't there. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Let's say that. Okay. Luffy will use Gear 5 to make himself... Okay, I'm going to say no. Jarl gets into his prime thanks to Bonnie in the end of the chapter. That would be cool. I like to believe that happens, but I just don't know if it'll happen next chapter. Emo will drop lore on how Maki works to bring the morale down and let them know how impossible it is, before he's reminded of the Will of D by Luffy and Loki and shows us a quick flashback. This is what... okay, I see. This is what was posted in stream as well. Yeah, let's do it. We are going to wrap stream shortly, so let me just send give a reminder. So, and I know I got a super to catch here. You can go to theories on Lore Square. Just go to the theories page or whatever. We are doing a theory competition next week. So post your theory here. You can post fairly elaborate theories. We're doing a theory competition on Monday stream. Monday stream theory competition. I think I'll do some sort of simple cash prize. I will be picking a winner, and then through votes, we'll be reading all the theories on stream. Through votes, we'll be chat will basically be voting which theory that they think is best over the course of it. Okay, so I'll be picking a winner. Chat picks a winner, and yeah. So get your theories in. This is everybody can get their theory in. You know, this is the first forum sort of setting that I've had that I could actually do this sort of theory prediction contest, because yeah, just through chat it's too hard to just too hard to like get long form theories from people, because it's, you know, everything flies by too quick. So if you want to flex, if you want to try and compete for the best theory, then hop in here. KKD.Reaper4674, thanks for the 5. Prequels are delicious garbage. OG trilogy is delicious except parts of 6. New trilogy is ass. Yeah, I agree. Prequels... I think I never liked the prequels personally, and it's not even nostalgia bias, because like the first Star Wars movie that I ever watched was actually... what is it? Fuck. Hold on. Yeah, Revenge of the Sith. You know, it was the third prequel movie in theaters. So I watched that with my family. So that was my first Star Wars experience. And it had all the cool battles and stuff. And at the time, the original trilogy just looked like really slow, boring shit. But then, you know, after actually getting to experience everything, I was kind of like, yeah, the prequels, to me, they kind of suck. So I don't think I ever enjoyed them, even ironically. I think that the fights are really cool there. That's what they've got going for them, the fights and the action. Always disliked the storytelling, acting, dialogue, etc. But ever since the new trilogy came out, I can at least appreciate what the prequel was kind of going for. I guess I would say that the prequel has a great outline of a story. The outline of the story is phenomenal. Whereas with the new trilogy, even the outline of the story is ass. And it's ass because there was actually no outline. From what I've read, I might be slightly misinformed, but everything that I've read and people have said is basically that they didn't have an outline. They were just like, let's just reuse New Hope, use that as the blueprint, kickstart some stuff, and then, we'll see where things go. And like, that's why there's so much, so much of a disconnect between what the first one was trying to do, and then what the Rian Johnson was trying to do, and then what the final one was trying to do, and it's just a mess, right? So, prequels I still don't think are good, but I can view them as, I guess, enjoyable, dumb action movies, Particularly the final one, The final one is chock full of lightsaber duels. Like, in terms of pure Star Wars action, the final one is really good. It gives you so many cool matchups, obviously Anakin versus Obi-Wan, Yoda versus Palpatine, Anakin and Obi-Wan versus Dooku, Obi-Wan versus General Grievous, randomly one of my favorite little lightsaber fights. Or it's not even a lightsaber fight, I think that's why it gets kind of cool. It gets kind of dirty and grimy as the fight goes on. Mace Windu versus Palpatine. I think that's all the heavy hitters from that one. But yeah, just cool stuff. And then the original trilogy, I think that's all. It's a really tight story, hits all the beats. I think the sixth movie, not the most unique opinion in the world, but I think the sixth movie just doesn't quite figure out how to do the climax in as good of a way as possible. But I think some aspects, like Luke and Vader's final battle, and Vader betraying the Emperor or turning against the Emperor, etc., I think those things are good. Yeah. Yeah, the fights are sick in the prequels. Attack of the Clones, now that's a crazy-ass movie. I don't remember Attack of the Clones that well. I think it's the only Star Wars movie that I've only seen once. I thought it was, like, extremely boring from what I remember, but I haven't watched it as an adult. Like, my dad liked Star Wars, so he bought, the full original trilogy and prequel trilogy. And I think all of them I've seen at least a couple times, except for Attack of the Clones. It's just, I just remember it being extremely boring. It was like, I might be wrong, but it was like, most of it was I think a lot of it was the bad romance between Anakin and Padme, right? From what I remember. And then Obi-Wan, like, chasing Boba Fett's dad, who Obi-Wan, in my opinion, had an embarrassingly difficult time dealing with. But yeah. Dobby Greg says, you ever watch Code Geass? Great ending. I watched Code Geass, but I stopped after the end of season 1 because I was really enjoying it. From my recollection, season 1 essentially resets a lot of the story progress over the course of Code Geass, to a point that it was like, it's such a hard reset that it was like, I think as a kid, I was just like, not as motivated to keep watching. I've heard it's really good, though. I don't know. Virgil Hawkins says, people hated The Last Jedi, but I think popular opinion would have softened if Rise of Skywalker didn't make it feel pointless. My view on the new trilogy, so I was actually very positive on the new trilogy when it came out, because, even for the first two movies, because my view, which I personally think is the healthy view from the beginning, is that the new trilogy isn't canon. Because it logically just isn't canon, right? It's not, I mean, I think there's a difference between legally canon versus, like, we're all fucking humans with brains. We know that this isn't actually Like, none of this is actually what the creator George Lucas okayed or signed off on. He was just given a really big check so that Disney can say that this stuff is canon, but we know that it's not actually, like, it's totally different fucking people, right? You know, I mean, to me, it's just like, if you take a step back and think about it logically for a second, right? If tomorrow Jeff Bezos paid Oda $10 billion so that he can write the next chapter of One Piece, right? And then Jeff Bezos just wrote, I've given this example before, Jeff Bezos just writes, One Piece ends next chapter when Imu dies of a heart attack, and it turns out that the One Piece is just a giant piece of poop, and then the story ends. Would you all seriously be like, oh, well, I guess that's how One Piece ends? Fuck no. You're fucking human with a brain. You'd be like, oh, we never find out how One Piece ends. You know? You wouldn't just be like, I guess that's canon. Oh, I guess the fucking will of D all along. It was going to be a giant piece of poop. It's like, no, this is fan fiction. Someone just paid Oda a lot of money to say that this story is now theirs, but you fucking know it's not, right? So I always went into it. I didn't even come into it in my mind with like a toxic, it wasn't even a toxic mentality. I was like open to seeing like, oh, this is kind of like a new take on Star Wars that Disney's doing. And I didn't for a second think that like, oh, I guess fucking like they didn't actually beat the Empire. What a shock. They didn't actually beat the Empire. It's like, no, they beat the Empire. That's how George Lucas' story fucking ended. It's over, right? This is Disney making up some new shit, so just treat it like that. This is some Disney stuff, right? It's not. That's what bothers me the most with new Star Wars discourse. It's like, it's not fucking canon. The only reason it's fucking even remotely considered canon is people online complain about it being canon and being like, this isn't my Luke Skywalker. This wouldn't happen to my Luke Skywalker. It's like, okay, just say it's not. Just say it's not Luke Skywalker. You know, it's not hard. We can all collectively just agree that this isn't real shit. This is just Disney's make-believe, and we're fine, you know? It's just use your brains, in my opinion, right? So I actually liked the new trilogy because I treated it as not canon. So I'm like, oh, this is like an alternate universe where Luke actually becomes like a really shitty bum later on in life, and he kind of has to learn a lesson or whatever, right? So I actually enjoyed the... what's the second one in the new trilogy called? The one everyone hates, the Rian Johnson one? I actually enjoyed that one, because I never for a second was like, oh, this is actually what happens to Luke, because that's fucking stupid. Just because a giant corporation pays George Lucas $1 billion doesn't mean that this is actually what happens to Luke. What happens to Luke is what George Lucas says happens to Luke, which is the story ended, right? So, because I'm not a fucking moron, I was able to just appreciate it as like, this is an alternate universe. I'm not going to care what happens in an alternate universe. Okay, so this is cool. They're going with the angle of like, what if Luke has like a bad ending as kind of like a Jedi master and teacher? I was like, that's fun. So, and the filmmaking in the Rian Johnson movie, like the actual direction, scene direction, it's the best that there is in the Star Wars series in general. It's very, very good scene direction. There's a lot of artistic creativity that's not really there, especially not in the prequels and stuff. So I just enjoyed it as movies. But then by the final film, the writing was also just really bad. So I couldn't even enjoy it as an alternate universe film, you know? Anyway. Jordan Vance says, Morge, unfortunately they are canon. Disney isn't creative enough to do multiverse. No, you're confusing legally canon with fucking logically canon, right? Again, just apply the One Piece logic. If Jeff Bezos tomorrow paid Oda $100 billion so that Jeff Bezos could write the ending of One Piece, and then Jeff Bezos wrote, the One Piece is a giant piece of poop, would you then be like, oh, I guess that's the answer. All of our theories were wrong. We were looking at this the wrong way. Turns out the One Piece is a giant piece of poop. We completely misunderstood all of the clues and foreshadowing. All of it was pointing towards it being a giant piece of poop. No, that's not what the fucking story is. You would just be like, oh, your natural response would just be, I guess we never find out how One Piece ends. That would be what it is. You wouldn't be like, oh, I guess Zoro never becomes the world's strongest swordsman. Never mind. That was all never going to happen. It was just BS. You'd just be like, oh, we didn't get to find out the ending. That's it. Just apply that logic. Legally canon has nothing to do with how storytelling actually works. The story is something that's in a creator's head, right? Now, George Lucas didn't come up with every plot point of Star Wars. A lot of it was stuff that other people came up with, but he is ultimately the one who decides what stays in and out of Star Wars. So ultimately, he, like the final product of the story that we get between originals and prequel trilogy, it's all stuff that he signs off on, meaning that all of it is what he's deciding the story of Star Wars is, right? That's what a story is, right? Story is just something that somebody thinks of in their head, right? If Disney pays him to then be like, give us the rights to this, they just have the rights, but they don't have his fucking brain, meaning that everything Disney puts out is not actually stuff that George Lucas is signing off on, meaning it's not part of the same fucking story. It's a new story made by new people, you know? It's just allowed to have the same fucking logo on it. Those are two different things. So I think a lot of the, like, I don't engage in a lot of the toxicity about the new Star Wars stuff because I'm like, I'm not fucking stupid. Like, I understand what, like, legal stuff means versus what, you know, actual storytelling works like, you know? That's all. There's not anything to get even that heated about other than, like, oh, Disney's version of Star Wars is really bad, but it's also Disney's version of Star Wars. It has nothing to do with how George Lucas concluded the story, you know? Anyway. This is so dumb. Things like rights and legal stuff, that's stuff that we as a society came up with much later, right? To decide legalities of things, right? So yeah, legally, that's Star Wars. I'm saying that you can just logically as a person separate that from what we understand our concept of a story to be, right? Like, that's not... I'm not making the claim that legally it's not canon. I'm just saying that you can understand story-wise, is this what the creator of Star Wars came up with? No. So there's nothing else to discuss, right? That's it. Like, the story of Star Wars ended when he stopped making the movies and stopped saying okay, right? Canonically, legally, there is a IP that is called Star Wars that is still being made, but that isn't the same thing as the fucking story you all read. Again, if you are genuinely arguing that if Jeff Bezos tomorrow paid Oda enough money that Jeff Bezos gets to write the next chapter of One Piece, and you would genuinely be like, oh, I guess that's how One Piece ends, then it's just like, that's legitimately kind of sad because it's basically saying that you don't have a brain. And I like to think that the good people of chat are better than that, right? So if you can just apply that logic to One Piece, you should be able to apply that logic to Star Wars, right? Tiptio, thanks to 2. Star Wars EU also has Sidious cloning / Empire plot. Isn't the extended universe made by fans? To me, it's got like the same level of like actual... Again, if it's not by Lucas, it's not really relevant, you know? The old Jandaria says it's so funny that Morge thinks his opinion is fact. I mean, I'm genuinely confused. What's the argument here? Are you saying that if Jeff Bezos... Like, tell me that right now. If Jeff Bezos tomorrow bought One Piece, and he wrote tomorrow that One Piece is a big piece of poop, and the story ends, right? Tell me right now that you would be like, oh, that's the answer to what the One Piece is. Tell me right now that you'd be like, oh, that's what all the theories were leading up to. Tell me right now that that's what all the clues in One Piece lead up to. If you legitimately say that, I mean, I guess it's my opinion, but my opinion would be like, you're fucking stupid. Or you have no free will or free logic, like ability to apply logic to how storytelling works, right? If you're legitimately saying that, then I guess we just have a fundamental disagreement in terms of like basic critical thinking, and I think there's a gap there that can't be bridged. So, you know, if you actually think that, then sure. But you're just, like, making life worse for yourself, I guess, in the sense that you're, like, you are forcing yourself to believe that the new Star Wars is part of George Lucas's story, right? You're forcing yourself to basically accept that if a corporation buys this, then that officially becomes, or then that actually is the story that the original creator came up with, you know? All that matters is the creator. That's what stories are. Prophet Glutton says, I hate when people pretend not to understand a coherent argument. Either that or these people are actually stupid. I mean, it's self-inflicted stupidity or self-inflicted pain, because it's like, no, we have to accept the new Star Wars as being the real story of Star Wars, and we hate it, so we're hating ourselves. It's like, just relax. You know it's not made by George Lucas. You know this wasn't actually the vision for Star Wars. You know there's just $1 billion corporation paying to say it's Star Wars. Just like, just relax. It is what it is, you know? I mean, I think these arguments are basically just sad, which is like, you're not able to think a little bit. It's just a lack of critical thinking, you know? Yes, that is canon, like it or not, if Oda's on board. But the thing is, Lucas wasn't on board, right? If somebody buys it and then, you know, it's still Oda's vision that's being created, that's different. But Lucas has, I think, explicitly not been on board with the way that they've gone with things. So, therefore, if you just understand that canon, legality, this sort of thing is literally just, those are just frameworks that we as humans came up to have consistent laws so that we can dictate who can sell what with what different IP, right? If you just understand that, then you understand that the actual concept of what we're trying to get at here, which is broader than canon, right? It's like, what is a story? What constitutes a story? A story is an idea that somebody has in their head, you know? That's what stories are, right? They're ideas that people have in their head that they then share with other people, that they narrate the story, right? You cannot pay a certain amount of money to magically now have the same brain as the person that created the story, right? You are literally just paying for the rights to be able to use that IP. That's very, very different, right? So just apply some critical thinking here. It's not the same thing, right? It's not the same thing. If anything, it's feeding into, like, you're just creating your own, I guess, prison in a sense by thinking that, like, because $1 billion corporation paid for us to be able to say this thing is legit, that means it's legit, when it's like, you fucking know it's not legit. And you trying to, like, play into that and then complain about that is what causes you more pain. Like, if everybody was like, yeah, you paid for it, but literally nobody thinks that this is still Star Wars, it's done. It's easy, right? But I think people are a little bit too like, oh my god, they paid for it. They paid for it. That means that this is the rest of Star Wars. It's like, no, the same way, like, if Elon Musk paid Oda to be like, hey, can I continue writing One Piece? I wouldn't just be, like, reading carefully, being like, oh my god, I wonder what the rest of One Piece is. I'd be like, you all would fucking drop the story, would you not? Because you'd know that this isn't really us getting the true ending of One Piece. Unless you actually think that Elon Musk gets to decide the true ending of One Piece, in which case it's just like, it's a little sad because that there's just a lack of critical thinking involved there, I think, at that point. Empty Mind, thanks for the 2. Thoughts on new YouTube videos update? First frame equals view. I thought it'd be like a crazy big different deal. I haven't seen anything too different, so don't really know what to say. Tatio, you're getting too caught up in the technical. Critical thinking is not just in terms of, like, what's technically the case. Yeah, we've established... You're trying to make an argument that hurts your own reality. You know what I mean? In terms of, like, if you all just apply your brains, no, it's not the same thing. It's not Star Wars just because someone paid to say it's Star Wars, you know? The world, like, these things that we come up with, which is like rules, IP laws, copyright, that's all that's all just for the purposes of businesses, right? Businesses and how corporations are and aren't allowed to act. It has nothing to do with the art of storytelling. It is totally irrelevant to the art of storytelling. If you're unable to actually separate, like, the technical nitty-gritty of things with actually understanding what these concepts mean, then you're just making life worse for yourself, because you can understand if you apply your own individual brain that it's not what Lucas created, therefore it's not actually the true story of Star Wars. But if you're so caught up into, like, well, what does Law 81D2B say? Oh, I guess this means that this is the story and I'm forced to just think of it as a story. You're not forced to think of it as anything, you know? It's just use your brains, that's all. There's a difference between like what's technically the true. If you guys want to argue what's technically true, sure, that's the case. I'm saying like actually apply critical thinking to what does this mean. That's a totally different universe, you know? It is what it is. Either you get it or you don't. Either you get it or you don't. If you don't get it, you're basically just suffering in the sense that you're like, I have to pretend that this new Star Wars is real and it ruins the story of Star Wars, but I'm just forced to pretend it's the case. It's like, no, you're not. Use your brain. It is what it is. I don't know. All right. 8baller says, I think people must be trolling you at this point, Morge. I mean, that's fair, because it's like, I'm a little heated about this. Like, this is the only way I get heated about Star Wars stuff. In actual discussions, I don't actually care that much, because to me, it's just like, that's just Disney Star Wars. It's not what the story was, you know? It's a new story that they're coming up with. So then I don't like the last one, I enjoy the first two, etc. But I guess this is a way to get me heated, because it's kind of just like, I feel like people are playing dumb just to irritate me. Which works to some degree. That's one of the best ways that you guys do get me to go on rants, which is just like playing dumb in a way that like triggers my desire for reasoning to be understood, and then it causes me to go into some levels of circles. So we're going to cut it off here. Theory competition coming on Monday. Get your theories in on Lore Square while you can over the course of the weekend. And yeah, Monday we'll be seeing what chat, we'll be reading through all the theories. Chat can vote on which theories they like, dislike, etc. I'll be picking one. Chat, you guys pick one, and yeah. All right, everybody. Good stream today. Thank you all for tuning in. And yeah, with that, I will talk to you all later.